12 people sat around the mahogany table at the most expensive restaurant in Atlanta, but Nicole Carter felt like she was surrounded by wolves. She had been excited about this rehearsal dinner for months. Tomorrow she would marry Brandon Mitchell, the man who had swept her off her feet at a coffee shop 2 years ago. The man who said he loved her smile, her kindness, her heart. The man who made her believe that love stories could happen to ordinary girls like her. But right now, that man sat silent beside her while his mother reached into her designer handbag. Patricia Mitchell pulled out a thick stack of papers held together with a black clip. She slid them across the table toward Nicole with one perfectly manicured finger. "We need you to sign this before tomorrow," Patricia said. Her voice was smooth like honey poured over ice. Nicole looked at the document. Prenuptial agreement was printed across the top in bold letters. "What is this?" Nicole asked, though she could clearly see what it was. "Protection," said Robert Mitchell, Brandon's father, from the head of the table. "For our family's assets. Surely you understand." Nicole looked at Brandon. He wouldn't meet her eyes. He just stared at his wine glass, turning the stem between his fingers. "Brandon," she said softly, "did you know about this?" "It's standard procedure, baby," he said without looking up. "Everyone does it." "Sign it or the wedding's off," said Patricia. She smiled, but her eyes were hard as stone. "We need to protect what's ours. I'm sure you have nothing to worry about since you're marrying Brandon for love, not money. Right?" The table went silent. Nicole could feel every pair of eyes on her. Brandon's sister Candace smirked behind her napkin. His brother Victor checked his watch like he was bored. His aunt and uncle whispered to each other. Nicole picked up the document and began to read. The prenup stated that in case of divorce, Nicole would receive nothing. No spousal support. No claim to any Mitchell property. No rights to any business interest. She would leave the marriage with only what she brought into it. There was also a clause about children. Any child would remain in Mitchell custody if the marriage ended. Nicole would have to prove in court that she was a fit mother just to get visitation rights. But the part that made her hands shake was the final section. It stated that Nicole would give up any rights to her own income earned during the marriage. Everything she made would go into a joint account controlled by Brandon. They wanted to own her completely. Nicole set down the paper. Her throat felt tight. This was not the night she had imagined. She had dreamed of toasts and laughter and stories about how she and Brandon met. She had imagined his mother finally warming up to her, finally accepting her as part of the family. Instead, she was being handed a contract that would make her a prisoner. "This is very thorough," Nicole said carefully. "Our lawyers are the best in the state," Robert said proudly. "I need time to read it properly," Nicole said. "And I should have my own lawyer look at it." Patricia's smile froze. "We don't have time for that. The wedding is tomorrow." "Then push back the wedding," Nicole said. The table erupted. Candace gasped. Victor rolled his eyes. The aunt and uncle shook their heads like Nicole had said something shameful. "Push back the wedding?" Patricia repeated. Her voice had lost its smooth tone. Now it sounded like gravel. "Do you know how much we've spent on this event? Do you know how many important people have cleared their schedules to attend? You want us to tell the governor's wife that we're rescheduling because the bride needs to read?" "Mother," Brandon said quietly. "No," Patricia snapped at him. "I told you this would happen. I told you she wasn't right for this family. A nurse from nowhere with no people and no connections. We welcomed her, and this is how she repays us." Nicole felt her face grow hot. "I haven't refused to sign it. I just want to understand what I'm signing." "What's there to understand?" Robert demanded. "You get nothing because you have nothing. You should be grateful we're allowing you into this family at all." Nicole sat very still. She could feel her heart beating in her ears. She could feel the weight of their stares, their judgment, their contempt. They thought she was nothing. They thought she was a poor girl from the wrong side of town who had gotten lucky. They thought she should get on her knees and thank them for letting her touch their precious son. They had no idea that sitting in that chair, wearing a simple black dress from a department store, was a woman worth more than the Mitchell family and all their crumbling businesses combined. Nicole had $10 million in the bank. She had kept it secret for years, wanting someone to love her for herself. She had worn normal clothes, driven a used car, lived in a modest apartment. She had wanted to find a man who didn't care about money. She thought Brandon was that man. Now she realized Brandon was nothing but a puppet, and his family held the strings. Nicole looked at the prenup again. She looked at the clause that would take her own earnings. She looked at the part about children. She looked at all the ways they planned to trap her. Then she looked at Patricia Mitchell, who was watching her with cold satisfaction. waiting for Nicole to break. "I'll give you my answer tomorrow," Nicole said. "Before the ceremony." "That's not acceptable," Patricia said. "It's my final offer." Nicole stood up from the table. Her legs felt weak, but she kept her back straight. "Thank you for dinner." She walked out of the private room without looking back. She could hear them talking about her before she even reached the door. She heard words like ungrateful and gold digger, and I knew she would be trouble. Brandon didn't follow her. Nicole walked through the restaurant with her head held high. She pushed through the front door and stepped into the cool night air. Then she leaned against the brick wall and let the tears fall. She cried for the love she thought she had found. She cried for the future she had imagined with Brandon. The house, the children, the growing old together. She cried for the girl who had believed that someone could love her without conditions. But as she wiped her eyes, something else began to grow inside her. It started small like a spark in dry grass. But it spread quickly, burning away the hurt, the shame, the sadness. It was anger. These people had smiled in her face while planning to control her. Brandon had held her hand while keeping secrets. His family had pretended to welcome her while looking down on her the whole time. They wanted her to sign away her dignity. They thought she had no choice. They thought she had nothing. They were wrong. Nicole straightened up. She took a deep breath of the night air. She looked up at the stars above the city lights. She was not going to cry anymore. She was going to make them pay. Nicole sat in her car outside her apartment building, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. The prenup papers sat on the passenger seat, their pages slightly crumpled from being shoved into her purse. She needed to think. She needed to be smart about this. But first she needed to remember who she was. Nicole Carter was born in a small town in Georgia called Millbrook. Her mother died when she was 8, cancer that spread too fast for the doctors to catch. Her father worked double shifts at the local factory to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. Then when Nicole was 16 he died too. Heart attack in the break room. Gone before the ambulance arrived. Nicole became an orphan overnight. She had no siblings, no aunts or uncles who wanted to take in a teenager. She was 2 weeks away from being sent into foster care when her grandmother stepped in. Grandma Ruth was her mother's mother. She lived alone on 40 acres of land outside Millbrook that had been in the family for 4 generations. She was 73 years old, walked with a cane, and had a tongue sharper than a razor blade. "You'll live with me," Grandma Ruth said at the funeral, "and you'll finish school. I didn't raise your mama to have her only child become a dropout." Nicole moved into the old farmhouse. She helped her grandmother with the garden and the chickens. She studied hard and graduated high school with honors. She got a scholarship to Georgia State University, where she earned her nursing degree. Grandma Ruth died peacefully in her sleep 2 days after Nicole's graduation. She was 80 years old. Nicole was devastated. Grandma Ruth was the last family she had. The old woman had been tough on her, but she had also taught Nicole how to be strong. How to stand up straight when the world tried to push you down. How to keep your dignity when people treated you like dirt. "Don't ever let anyone make you feel small," Grandma Ruth used to say. "You come from good people. We may not have fancy things, but we have pride. Don't you ever forget that." Nicole inherited everything Grandma Ruth owned: the farmhouse, the land, the old truck that barely ran. She was 22 years old with a nursing degree and 40 acres of Georgia clay. She was about to put the land up for sale when she got a phone call that changed her life. "Miss Carter? This is Howard Green from Pinnacle Resources. We're very interested in your property." Nicole had never heard of Pinnacle Resources. She looked them up online. They were a major company that extracted minerals from the earth: lithium, cobalt, copper. "Why are you interested in my land?" she asked. "Because it's sitting on top of one of the largest lithium deposits we've found in the southeast," Mr. Green said. "We'd like to buy the mineral rights." Nicole didn't know much about lithium. She did some research. She learned it was used in batteries, for phones, laptops, electric cars. Demand was going through the roof. Prices were climbing every year. She hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but a specialist in mineral rights and natural resources. She paid him with the last of her savings from her nursing job. The negotiations took 4 months. Pinnacle Resources started with an offer of $500,000. Nicole said no. They came back with $1 million. She said no. They went up to $3 million, then $5 million. Nicole held firm. "That land is my grandmother's legacy," she told her lawyer. "I'm not going to let them steal it." In the end, Pinnacle Resources paid $10 million for the mineral rights to Grandma Ruth's 40 acres. $10 million. Nicole sat in the bank when the wire transfer came through. She stared at the number on the screen. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She was a millionaire. Her first instinct was to tell everyone. She wanted to scream it from the rooftops. She wanted to buy a big house and a fancy car and designer clothes. But then she remembered something Grandma Ruth had told her years ago. Money changes people, the old woman said. It makes some people greedy. It makes others jealous. And it makes it real hard to know who your true friends are. Nicole decided to keep her money a secret. She kept working as a nurse. She stayed in her modest apartment. She drove her used Honda. She shopped at regular stores and ate at regular restaurants. She invested most of her money with a financial advisor who came highly recommended. She set up accounts and trusts and funds that would make her money grow. She donated to charities that helped orphans and paid for scholarships for nursing students. But she never told anyone how much she was worth. Not even when she met Brandon Mitchell. He had walked into the coffee shop where she was reading a book. He was handsome, charming, well-dressed. He asked if he could sit at her table because all the other seats were taken. They talked for 2 hours. He told her he came from a wealthy family but that he wanted to make his own way in the world. He said he was tired of people only caring about his name and his money. He said he wanted to find someone real. Nicole thought she had found someone who understood her. When she met his family, she knew they didn't approve. Patricia looked at her like she was a stain on the carpet. Robert asked what her father did for a living, and when she said he worked in a factory, he didn't ask any more questions. But Brandon always defended her. He said his family would come around. He said they just needed time to see how wonderful she was. Nicole believed him. She was a fool. Now she sat in her car, looking at the prenup that would strip her of everything. Not just her money but her freedom. Her voice. Her children. They thought she was desperate. They thought she had no options. They didn't know that the woman they were trying to trap could buy and sell them 10 times over. Nicole pulled out her phone. She called the one person she could always count on. "Hey girl," said Tasha, her best friend since college. "Aren't you supposed to be at your fancy rehearsal dinner?" "I left early," Nicole said. What happened?" Nicole told her everything. The prenup, the demands, Brandon's silence, Patricia's threats. When she finished, Tasha was quiet for a long moment. "Please tell me you didn't sign that mess," Tasha said. "I didn't sign it." "Good. Because if you did, I was going to drive over there and smack some sense into you myself." Nicole almost smiled. "Almost. What am I going to do, Tash? The wedding is tomorrow." "I'll tell you what you're going to do," Tasha said. "You're going to take that $10 million and you're going to remind those people who they're dealing with. They think you're nothing? Show them everything." Nicole closed her eyes. She thought about Grandma Ruth. She thought about her parents. She thought about all the years she had worked hard and kept quiet and tried to be humble. Maybe it was time to stop being humble. Maybe it was time to roar. "I need your help," Nicole said. "I'm already grabbing my keys," Tasha replied. "Let's burn it down." Tasha showed up at Nicole's apartment 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a notepad. She was wearing sweatpants and a bonnet, which meant she had run out the door without caring what she looked like. That was how Nicole knew her friend was serious. "Okay," Tasha said, settling onto the couch and pouring 2 glasses. "Start from the beginning. And I mean the real beginning. When did things start feeling wrong?" Nicole took a long sip of wine. She had been so focused on the prenup that she hadn't let herself think about the other things. The little moments she had pushed aside because she wanted to believe in her fairy tale. 6 months ago, Nicole said slowly. "Maybe longer." 6 months? Girl, that's half your engagement." "I know." Nicole stared at her glass. Brandon started working late. Like really late. He said his father was giving him more responsibility at the company. He said he had to prove himself. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? He's always wanted his father's approval. It made sense. Tasha wrote something on her notepad. "What else?" "The phone calls," Nicole said. "He started leaving the room whenever his phone rang. He said it was work stuff, confidential business. But he never used to do that before. We used to tell each other everything." Tasha said in that tone that meant she was not impressed. "What else?" Nicole felt her chest tighten. She didn't want to say the next part out loud because saying it would make it real. 3 weeks ago, she said quietly, "I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. From a hotel downtown. The Monarch." Tasha stopped writing. "What did he say?" "He said it was for a client meeting. He said sometimes they book conference rooms at hotels because the office doesn't have enough space." "And you checked that?" "No." Nicole's voice was small. "I wanted to trust him." Tasha put down her pen. She took Nicole's hands in hers. "Listen to me," Tasha said firmly. "I love you like a sister. That's why I'm going to say this straight. Brandon has been lying to you. That family has been using you. And if you walk down that aisle tomorrow, you are going to regret it for the rest of your life." Nicole's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I think I've known for a while. I just didn't want to see it." "That's how they get you," Tasha said. "They make you doubt yourself. They make you think you're crazy for noticing what's right in front of your face." Nicole wiped her eyes. She thought about all the times she had questioned herself. All the times Brandon had explained away her concerns and made her feel silly for worrying. "I need to know the truth," Nicole said. "I need proof." "Then let's get proof," Tasha said. "Tomorrow is supposed to be your wedding day. Let's make sure you know exactly who you're marrying before you walk down that aisle." They made a plan. Nicole would go through Brandon's things while he was out. She would check his phone, his emails, his credit card statements. Tasha would do some digging online, looking for any information about the Mitchell family's finances. "What about the prenup?" Nicole asked. "You're not signing that thing," Tasha said firmly. "But you're also not going to refuse it. Not yet. You're going to smile and play along until we know what we're dealing with." Nicole nodded. It went against everything in her heart to pretend. But she knew Tasha was right. She needed information before she made any moves. That night, Nicole barely slept. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about every moment of her relationship with Brandon. Every kiss, every promise, every plan they had made together. Had any of it been real? She thought about the way he used to look at her in the beginning, like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Like he couldn't believe his luck. When had that look changed? She thought about the first time she met his parents. Patricia had barely shaken her hand. Robert had looked her up and down like he was inspecting merchandise. "She seems very simple," Patricia had said to Brandon, not even bothering to whisper. "I suppose that has its charms." Brandon had laughed it off. He said his mother didn't mean anything by it. He said Patricia just needed time to warm up. 2 years later, Patricia was still ice cold. Nicole realized now that she had been making excuses for all of them. Brandon, his parents, his siblings. She had bent over backward trying to fit into their world, trying to prove she was good enough. But she was never going to be good enough for them. Not because she was lacking anything, but because they were the ones who were broken. They were so obsessed with money and status that they couldn't see the value in anything else. The next morning, Nicole put on her game face. She texted Brandon that she was sorry about leaving the dinner early. She said she just needed some air. She said she was ready to talk about the prenup. Brandon called her immediately. "Baby, I'm so glad you're being reasonable," he said. His voice was sweet as honey. "I know my family can be a lot, but they just want what's best for us." "I understand," Nicole said, keeping her voice calm. "Can we meet for lunch? Just the two of us?" "Of course. I'll pick you up at noon." Nicole hung up and looked at herself in the mirror. She saw a woman who had spent 2 years trying to be loved. A woman who had hidden her true self because she wanted to be accepted for who she was inside. Well, that woman was gone. From now on, Nicole was going to be smart. She was going to be strategic. She was going to find out every dirty secret the Mitchell family was hiding. And then she was going to make them pay. At noon, Brandon arrived in his BMW. He was wearing an expensive suit and his perfect smile. He kissed Nicole on the cheek and opened the car door for her like a gentleman. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you," she replied. They drove to a restaurant that Brandon loved, an upscale place with white tablecloths and waiters in bow ties. He ordered for both of them without asking what she wanted. He always did that. Nicole used to think it was romantic. Now she saw it for what it was. Control. "So," Brandon said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "About the prenup." "I read it last night," Nicole said. "All of it. And? It's very thorough." Brandon smiled. "My mother's lawyers are the best. They don't miss anything." "I noticed." Nicole paused. "There's a clause about my earnings going into a joint account." "For tax purposes," Brandon said smoothly. "It's better for both of us." "And the clause about children?" Brandon's smile flickered just slightly. "That's standard in families like ours. The Mitchell name has to be protected." "Protected from whom?" Nicole asked. "From anyone who might try to take what isn't theirs." Nicole looked into his eyes. This was the man she had loved. The man she had planned to build a life with. The man she had trusted with her future. And now he was sitting across from her, casually explaining why she would have no rights to her own children. "I'll sign it," Nicole said. Brandon's face lit up. Really? On one condition. I want my own lawyer to review it first, just to explain the legal terms to me. I don't understand all the language. Brandon hesitated. The wedding is tomorrow, Nicole. I know. I'll have an answer by tonight. I just need a few hours. He studied her face, looking for something. Suspicion, maybe. Resistance. But Nicole kept her expression neutral. She had learned from the best, after all. She had watched Patricia Mitchell smile while delivering poison for 2 years. Fine, Brandon said finally. Tonight. But don't keep my mother waiting too long. You know how she gets. I know exactly how she gets, Nicole said. After lunch, Brandon dropped her off at her apartment. He kissed her goodbye and told her he loved her. Nicole smiled and said it back. Then she went inside and called Tasha. I need you to find me a private investigator, she said. The best one in Atlanta. Already done, Tasha replied. His name is Franklin Moss. He's meeting us in an hour. Nicole felt something shift inside her. The sadness was still there, underneath everything. But on top of it now was something stronger. Determination. She was going to find out the truth about Brandon Mitchell. And then she was going to destroy him. Franklin Moss was not what Nicole expected. She had imagined a private investigator would look like something out of a movie, trench coat, fedora, maybe a cigarette hanging from his lip. Instead, Franklin was a neat, quiet man in his 50s with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked more like an accountant than a detective. But Tasha said he was the best in the business, and that was all that mattered. They met at a coffee shop on the north side of town where nobody would recognize Nicole. She told Franklin everything. The prenup, the late nights, the hotel receipt, the phone calls Brandon took in private. Franklin listened without interrupting. When she finished, he nodded slowly. How long do I have? He asked. The wedding is tomorrow at 6 in the evening, Nicole said. Franklin raised his eyebrows. That's not much time. I know. But I need to know the truth before I walk down that aisle. Whatever it is. Franklin studied her for a moment. Are you sure? Sometimes the truth is harder than not knowing. Nicole thought about Grandma Ruth. She thought about all the times the old woman had told her to face things head-on, even when it hurt. I'm sure, Nicole said. All right. Franklin stood up. I'll have something for you by tonight. He left, and Nicole and Tasha sat in silence for a while. The weight of what she was doing pressed down on Nicole's chest. This was real now. There was no going back. You're doing the right thing, Tasha said quietly. Am I? Nicole stared at her coffee cup. What if I'm wrong? What if there's nothing to find? Then you'll know for sure. And you'll marry him with a clear conscience. Tasha paused. But I don't think you're wrong. I've seen how that man looks at his phone. I've seen how his family treats you. Something is rotten in that house. Nicole wanted to argue. She wanted to defend Brandon the way she had been defending him for 2 years. But she couldn't. Because deep down she knew Tasha was right. Something was very wrong. Nicole went home and tried to keep herself busy. She cleaned her apartment. She organized her closet. She did anything to keep her mind off what Franklin might find. At 7 o'clock her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words, check your email. Nicole's hands were shaking as she opened her laptop. There was a new message from fmoss@securemail.com. The subject line said, Mitchell, initial findings. She clicked on it. The email contained several attachments. Nicole opened the first one. It was a photograph. Brandon was standing outside a restaurant, his arm around a woman. She was tall with long red hair and a tight dress. Brandon was smiling at her like she was the only person in the world. Nicole's stomach dropped. She opened the next attachment. Another photo. Brandon and the redhead getting into his car together. His hand was on her lower back. The next photo showed them walking into a hotel. The Monarch Hotel. The same one from the receipt Nicole had found. The next attachment was a video file. Nicole's finger hovered over it. She didn't want to click. She didn't want to see. But she had to know. She pressed play. The video was taken through a restaurant window. Brandon was sitting at a table with the redhead. They were holding hands across the table. Then Brandon leaned over and kissed her. Not a quick peck. A real kiss. The kind of kiss he used to give Nicole. Nicole's vision blurred with tears. She had suspected. She had feared. But seeing it with her own eyes was different. It was a knife in her heart. There was one more attachment. Nicole opened it with trembling hands. It was a report from Franklin. He had identified the woman as Amber Collins. She worked at Mitchell Industries in the marketing department. She had been Brandon's assistant for the past 8 months. 8 months. Brandon had been seeing this woman for 8 months. Their entire engagement. Nicole closed her laptop. She sat very still on her couch, her hands folded in her lap. She could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. She could feel the tears rolling down her cheeks. But she didn't make a sound. This was the moment when everything became clear. All the late nights, all the excuses, all the times Brandon made her feel crazy for asking questions. It all made sense now. He had been lying to her from the beginning. He never loved her. He was just using her. But why? If he had Amber, why did he need Nicole? The answer came to her like a cold wave. The prenup. The Mitchells wanted someone they could control. Someone without money or connections. Someone who would sign away her rights and keep her mouth shut. Amber probably came from money. Amber probably knew how to play their games. Amber was not someone they could push around. But Nicole? Nicole was perfect. A poor orphan nurse who would be so grateful to marry into their family that she would do whatever they said. They thought she was weak. They thought she was desperate. They thought they had won. Nicole stood up slowly. She walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Her eyes were red from crying. Her makeup was smeared. But underneath the tears, something else was happening. The knife in her heart was turning into steel. She thought about Grandma Ruth. She thought about all the times the old woman had told her to never let anyone make her feel small. "You come from good people," Grandma Ruth used to say. "We may not have fancy things, but we have pride." Nicole wiped her eyes. She fixed her makeup. She straightened her shoulders. The Mitchells wanted to break her? Fine. She would break them first. She called Tasha. "I saw the pictures," Nicole said. Her voice was steady now. "Oh honey," Tasha breathed. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. I needed to see them. Now I know what I'm dealing with." "What are you going to do?" Nicole thought for a moment. The old Nicole would have confronted Brandon. She would have screamed and cried and demanded an explanation. She would have given him a chance to lie his way out of it. The new Nicole was smarter than that. "I'm not going to do anything," she said. "Not yet." "What do you mean?" "I mean the wedding is still happening tomorrow." Tasha was silent for a long moment. "Girl, have you lost your mind? You can't marry that man after what you just saw." "I'm not going to marry him," Nicole said. "But I am going to walk down that aisle. And I am going to destroy him in front of everyone he knows." Tasha let out a low whistle. "Now that's what I'm talking about. What do you need from me?" Nicole smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who had nothing left to lose. "First, I need you to call Franklin back. Tell him I need everything. Every secret the Mitchell family is hiding. I don't care how deep he has to dig. Done. Second, I need a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. Someone who specializes in contracts and fraud. I know someone. She's vicious." "Good. And third," Nicole paused, "I need to get my money ready." "Your money?" "My $10 million. I'm going to show the Mitchells exactly who they tried to mess with." Nicole didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table with her laptop, going through every piece of information Franklin had sent. The photos of Brandon with Amber were painful to see, but she forced herself to study them carefully. She needed to understand her enemy. By morning, Franklin had sent more files. A lot more. The Mitchell family was in trouble. According to Franklin's research, Mitchell Industries was drowning in debt. They had made bad investments, lost major clients, and taken out loans they couldn't repay. Their net worth, which they liked to brag about at cocktail parties, was mostly smoke and mirrors. They were 6 months away from bankruptcy. That's why they needed Nicole. Not her money, they didn't know about that. They needed a daughter-in-law they could control. Someone who would stand by Brandon's side and smile for the cameras while they scrambled to save their sinking ship. Someone who would give them grandchildren with the Mitchell name. Someone who had no power to question anything they did. Nicole was supposed to be their puppet. But puppets don't have $10 million and a very angry best friend. At 9 in the morning, Nicole met with the lawyer Tasha had recommended. Her name was Denise Walker, and she was exactly as advertised, vicious. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She read through the prenup in 10 minutes and laughed out loud. "They really thought you would sign this?" Denise said. "This is the most one-sided agreement I've ever seen. It's borderline illegal." "What do you mean?" Nicole asked. "This clause about your earnings? It essentially makes you an indentured servant. And this custody language? No court in Georgia would enforce this. It's designed to scare you into compliance, not to hold up legally. So it's useless? It's worse than useless. It shows intent to defraud. If you signed this and later discovered they were hiding their debt, you could sue them for fraud. Nicole leaned forward. They hid their debt? According to these financial records your investigator found, yes. Robert Mitchell has been cooking the books for years. The company is worth a fraction of what they claim. If you married Brandon without knowing this, you would be taking on his liabilities. So they wanted me to save them? They wanted you to go down with them, Denise said, while they tried to find a way out. Nicole sat back in her chair. She thought she had understood how low the Mitchells could go. She was wrong. This was worse than an affair. This was financial predation. What are my options? Nicole asked. Denise smiled. It was not a warm smile. You have several. You could walk away and never see them again. You could sue them for fraud. Or, she paused. You could do something more creative. Like what? Like showing them who they're dealing with, publicly. Nicole thought about this. She thought about Patricia's smug face at the rehearsal dinner. She thought about Robert looking down his nose at her. She thought about Brandon kissing Amber while wearing the engagement ring Nicole had helped him pick out. She thought about Grandma Ruth telling her to never let anyone make her feel small. Tell me more, Nicole said. They talked for 2 hours. Denise explained the legal options, the risks, and the potential rewards. By the time they finished, Nicole had a plan. She left Denise's office and made one more stop, the bank. She met with her financial advisor and moved her money around. She set up a new business account. She opened a charitable foundation in her grandmother's name. And she made sure that every penny was protected, visible, and ready to be revealed. That afternoon, Nicole went to the Mitchell estate for the final wedding preparations. She smiled at Patricia. She kissed Brandon. She pretended everything was fine. Did you have a chance to review the prenup? Patricia asked, watching Nicole like a hawk. I did, Nicole said sweetly. My lawyer looked it over this morning. Patricia's eye twitched. You hired a lawyer? Just to explain the legal terms. You know how confusing all that language can be. Nicole smiled. I'll have my answer at the ceremony. The ceremony? That's very dramatic. Well, Nicole said, I wanted to make sure the whole family was there when I gave my response. Patricia didn't like that. Nicole could tell by the way her jaw tightened. But what could she say? Nicole was being cooperative. She was being polite. She was playing their game. She was just playing it better. That evening, Nicole went home and prepared for what was coming. She laid out her wedding dress, a gorgeous white gown she had spent months choosing. She looked at it hanging in her closet and felt a strange mix of emotions. She had imagined wearing this dress while becoming Brandon's wife. She had imagined walking down the aisle toward her future. She had imagined the happiest day of her life. Now she would wear it for something very different. But she would still walk down that aisle. And it would still be unforgettable. Tasha came over that night. They didn't drink wine or laugh or do the things brides were supposed to do the night before their wedding. Instead, they went over the plan. Every detail. Every step. Every word. Are you nervous? Tasha asked. No, Nicole said. And she meant it. The tears were gone. The heartbreak was stored away in a box she would deal with later. Right now, there was only focus. You know this is going to change everything, Tasha said. Your life won't be the same after tomorrow. Good, Nicole replied. It's time for a change. That night, Nicole lay in bed and thought about the woman she used to be. The girl who had lost her parents too young. The orphan who had worked so hard to build a life. The woman who had hidden her fortune because she just wanted to be loved for herself. That woman had been searching for something. Acceptance. Belonging. Family. Now she knew the truth. She didn't need their acceptance. She didn't need to belong anywhere that required her to be small. She was her own family. And tomorrow she would show the world exactly what that meant. The morning of the wedding, Nicole woke up early. The sun was just coming up, painting her bedroom in soft gray light. For a moment, she lay still, letting herself feel the weight of what was coming. This was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it would be the most important. She got out of bed and went through her morning routine, shower, skincare, a light breakfast she could barely taste. Tasha arrived at 8 with coffee and a garment bag. You ready? Tasha asked. More than ready. The hair and makeup team arrived at 9. Nicole had hired them weeks ago, back when she thought she was preparing for a real wedding. Now they were preparing her for something else entirely. But they didn't need to know that. Nicole sat in the chair and let them work. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo with soft curls framing her face. Her makeup was flawless, glowing skin, dramatic eyes, nude lips. She looked like a bride in a magazine. She looked like a woman about to get married, but her eyes told a different story. They were calm, focused, ready. At noon, Nicole put on her wedding dress. It was a beautiful gown, fitted bodice, flowing skirt, delicate lace that caught the light. She had loved this dress from the moment she saw it. She had imagined Brandon's face when he saw her walking toward him. Now she imagined the faces of the entire Mitchell family when they realized what they had done. Tasha helped her with the zipper and adjusted the train. Then she stepped back and looked at Nicole with tears in her eyes. "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen," Tasha said. "And the bravest woman I know." "Don't make me cry," Nicole said. "I'm not going to waste my makeup on tears." They laughed. Felt good to laugh. It felt like releasing some of the tension that had been building for days. Nicole's phone buzzed. It was a text from Brandon. "Can't wait to see you at the altar. I love you, baby." Nicole looked at the message for a long moment. 2 weeks ago, this text would have made her heart flutter. Now it just made her stomach turn. She typed back, "See you soon." Then she put down the phone and picked up a folder that was sitting on her dresser. It contained everything: the photos of Brandon and Amber, the financial records showing the Mitchell family's debt, the predatory prenup designed to trap her. She also had something else. A document showing her net worth. $10 million clearly outlined in black and white. This was her weapon. At 3 o'clock, the limousine arrived to take Nicole to the venue. The Mitchell family had chosen a grand estate outside Atlanta for the wedding. It had manicured gardens, a stone chapel, and a ballroom that could hold 500 people. 500 people who were about to witness something they would never forget. Nicole climbed into the limo with Tasha by her side. They didn't speak during the drive. There was nothing left to say. The plan was in place. All that remained was to execute it. When they arrived at the estate, Nicole could see the guests already gathering. Expensive cars lined the driveway. Women in designer dresses and men in tailored suits walked toward the chapel, laughing and greeting each other. The who's who of Atlanta society. Politicians, business leaders, old money families. Patricia had invited everyone who mattered. She wanted to show off her son's wedding. She wanted to cement the Mitchell family's status as one of the elite. She had no idea what was coming. Nicole waited in the bridal suite while the guests took their seats. Tasha kept checking her phone for updates. The ceremony was scheduled to begin at 6 o'clock. At 5:30 there was a knock on the door. Tasha opened it to find Robert Mitchell standing there in his tuxedo. He looked uncomfortable, which Nicole enjoyed. "Nicole," he said stiffly, "the family wants to confirm that you've made your decision about the prenup." Nicole stood up and faced him. In her heels, she was almost as tall as he was. She looked him directly in the eyes. "I have," she said. "I'll announce it at the ceremony." Robert frowned. "That's not appropriate. These matters should be handled privately." "It will be private," Nicole said. "Just your family and 500 of your closest friends." Robert's face turned red. He started to say something, but Nicole held up her hand. "The ceremony starts in 30 minutes, Robert. I suggest you take your seat." He stared at her for a moment, clearly not used to being dismissed. Then he turned and walked away without another word. Tasha closed the door and burst out laughing. "Did you see his face? I thought he was going to have a stroke." "He might still," Nicole said. "The night is young." At 5 minutes to 6, Tasha helped Nicole gather her train and handed her the bouquet. White roses and lilies. Perfect for a bride. "Last chance to back out," Tasha said. "Not a chance," Nicole replied. Tasha nodded. She squeezed Nicole's hand once, then left to take her seat in the chapel. Nicole stood alone in the bridal suite. She looked at herself in the mirror one last time. She saw a beautiful woman in a beautiful dress. She saw a bride. But she also saw something else. She saw strength. She saw power. She saw a woman who would never be controlled again. The wedding coordinator appeared at the door. "It's time." Nicole picked up her bouquet and walked out of the room. She made her way to the entrance of the chapel, where the doors stood closed. Behind them, she could hear the murmur of 500 voices. The music started, the traditional wedding march. The doors began to open. Nicole took a breath, and then she started walking. The chapel was stunning. Candles everywhere. Flowers covering every surface. A red carpet leading to the altar where Brandon stood waiting, looking handsome in his black tuxedo. He smiled when he saw her. That perfect smile she used to love. Nicole smiled back. But her smile wasn't for him. It was for what was about to happen. She walked slowly down the aisle just like she had practiced. She nodded at the guests she recognized. She saw Patricia in the front row, wearing a smug expression that said she had won. She hadn't won anything. Nicole reached the altar and took Brandon's hands. He looked happy. He looked relieved. He thought she was about to become his wife. He had no idea she was about to become his worst nightmare. The officiant began to speak. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." Nicole listened to the words, but she wasn't really hearing them. She was waiting for the moment. It came soon enough. "If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be wed," the officiant said, "speak now or forever hold your peace." Nicole let the silence stretch for one heartbeat. 2, 3. Then she opened her mouth. "I do," she said. The chapel went completely silent. Brandon's face froze. Patricia half rose from her seat. Nicole turned to face the crowd. "I have a reason," she said. "Several, actually." And then she told them everything. The silence in the chapel was so complete that Nicole could hear the candles flickering. 500 faces stared at her. Some confused, some shocked, some already pulling out their phones. Good. She wanted them to record this. "My name is Nicole Carter," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the space. 6 hours ago, I was supposed to become Nicole Mitchell. But I've learned some things in the past few days that have changed my plans. Brandon grabbed her arm. "Nicole, what are you doing? This isn't funny." She pulled away from him calmly. "I'm not trying to be funny, Brandon. I'm trying to be honest. Something you've never been with me." Patricia stood up. "This is ridiculous. Nicole, if you have concerns, we can discuss them privately." "No," Nicole said firmly. "We can't. Because privately, you would find a way to silence me. Privately, you would make this disappear. That's what you do." She looked at the crowd. "That's what this family does." She reached into the hidden pocket of her dress. She had specifically asked the seamstress to add it, and pulled out the folder. The folder with everything. 3 days ago, Nicole said, the Mitchell family presented me with a prenuptial agreement. They demanded I sign it or they would cancel the wedding. She held up the document. Would anyone like to know what it said? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people leaned forward. Others looked uncomfortable. Nicole opened the folder and began to read. "In the event of divorce, Nicole Carter shall receive no spousal support, no claim to any Mitchell property or assets, and no rights to any business interests." She looked up. But that's not the interesting part. She turned the page. "The agreement also states that any income one earned during the marriage would go into a joint account controlled by my husband." She let that sink in. Controlled. Not shared. Not equally managed. Controlled. By him. More murmurs. Some of the women in the audience exchanged glances. "And then there's the clause about children." Nicole's voice was steady but harder now. "Any children of the marriage would remain in Mitchell custody if we divorced. I would have to prove in court that I was fit to have visitation rights." She paused. "Visitation. With my own children." Brandon stepped forward. "Nicole, you're misunderstanding the legal language." "Am I?" She turned to face him. "Then let me share something else I found. Something your family tried very hard to keep hidden." She pulled out another document. This one was thicker. "Mitchell Industries," she said, holding it up for everyone to see. "The cornerstone of the Mitchell empire. The source of their wealth and status." She looked at Robert, who had gone pale. "Except it's not wealthy, is it, Robert? It's 6 months away from bankruptcy." Gasped throughout the chapel. People started whispering. Robert stood up, his face purple with rage. "That is confidential business information. How did you?" "I hired a private investigator," Nicole said calmly. "He's very good. He found your cooked books, your hidden debts, your failed investments. He found all of it." She turned to the crowd again. "This family was going to marry me without disclosing their financial situation. They were going to tie me to their sinking ship without my knowledge or consent. That's called fraud, in case anyone was wondering." Patricia was on her feet now, pushing toward the altar. "You ungrateful little—" "I'm not finished," Nicole said, cutting her off. "There's one more thing." She pulled out the photographs. The photographs of Brandon and Amber. "For the past 8 months," Nicole said, "my fiancé has been having an affair with his assistant, Amber Collins." She held up the first photo. Brandon at the restaurant with Amber, his arm around her. She held up the second photo. Brandon and Amber at the hotel. "The Monarch Hotel," Nicole said. "I found the receipt in his pocket. He told me it was for a client meeting." Brandon's face had gone white. "Nicole, those photos are fake. Someone is trying to sabotage us." "There's also video," Nicole said. She pulled out her phone and hit play. The video of Brandon kissing Amber filled the screen. The sound echoed through the silent chapel. Or a few people actually laughed, the uncomfortable laughter of people who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Nicole stopped the video and looked at Brandon. He looked like he might faint. "You asked me to sign a prenup that would take everything from me," she said quietly. "But you couldn't even stay faithful for the 8 months we were engaged." Brandon opened his mouth but nothing came out. Nicole turned back to the crowd one final time. "I'm sure you're all wondering why I'm here. Why I got dressed up and walked down this aisle if I knew all of this." She paused. "It's because I wanted you all to see the truth. I wanted 500 witnesses to know exactly who the Mitchell family is." She looked at Patricia, who was frozen in place, her perfect makeup unable to hide her shock. "You thought I was a nobody," Nicole said. "A poor orphan nurse you could push around. You thought I would sign whatever you put in front of me because I was desperate to belong to your family." She reached into her folder one more time and pulled out the final document. "I'm not a nobody," she said. "And I'm not poor." She held up the paper. It showed her bank statements, her investment accounts, her net worth. $10 million, she said. "I've had it for years. I kept it a secret because I wanted someone to love me for myself, not my money. I thought Brandon was that person." She looked at him. "I was wrong." The chapel erupted. People were talking, gasping, taking photos. There was chaos. Nicole dropped the folder on the altar and turned to walk away. "The wedding is off," she said over her shoulder. "I won't be signing your prenup, Patricia. And I won't be joining your family. You can keep your debt and your lies and your cheating son. I want no part of it." She walked back down the aisle with her head held high. Tasha met her at the door, grinning from ear to ear. "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen," Tasha whispered. "Let's go," Nicole said. They walked out of the chapel together. Behind them, Nicole could hear shouting. Brandon calling her name. Patricia yelling at Robert. Guests talking over each other. But Nicole didn't look back. She climbed into the limousine and closed the door. Through the tinted window, she could see people streaming out of the chapel, staring at the car. "Where to?" the driver asked. Nicole thought for a moment. Then she smiled. "Take me home," she said. "I have a new life to start." The next morning, Nicole woke up in her own bed for the first time as a truly free woman. No engagement ring on her finger. No wedding to plan. No Mitchell family to impress. Just herself. Felt strange. Strange and wonderful. Her phone had been blowing up all night with texts and calls. Brandon had called 47 times. Patricia had left voicemails that ranged from pleading to threatening. Even Candace and Victor had reached out, trying to smooth things over. Nicole didn't respond to any of them. Instead, she called Denise Walker. "It's done," Nicole said. "Now what?" "Now we go on the offensive," Denise replied. "I've already filed a complaint with the Georgia Bar Association about their lawyer's conduct with that prenup. It was clearly designed to defraud you. What about the debt they hid? I'm working on that too. There's a strong case for civil fraud. You entered into an engagement without being informed that you would be taking on their liabilities. I want them to face consequences," Nicole said. "Real consequences. They will. Trust me." The fallout started almost immediately. The video from the wedding had gone viral overnight. Someone in the chapel had recorded the whole thing and posted it online. By morning, it had been viewed over 1 million times. "Rich family exposed at their own wedding," read the headline on the local news. "Bride drops bombshell. Fiancé cheating, family bankrupt," said another. "Mystery woman has $10 million, walks out on Billionaire," was the clickbait that spread fastest. Nicole watched the coverage with a strange detachment. This was her life being dissected by strangers. But it didn't feel like her life anymore. It felt like a story about someone else. The Mitchells tried to spin the narrative. Patricia gave a tearful interview where she claimed Nicole had seduced her son for his money. Robert said the company's financial troubles were exaggerated. Brandon posted on social media that the photos were fake. But nobody believed them. The evidence was too strong. The video was too clear. And besides, everyone loves a story about rich people getting their comeuppance. Within a week, Mitchell Industries lost 3 major clients. Investors pulled out of pending deals. The banks that had been patient with their loans started calling them in. Within a month, the company declared bankruptcy. Robert Mitchell was investigated for financial fraud. It turned out the cooked books went deeper than anyone realized. He had been lying to investors and partners for years. He was arrested and charged with multiple counts of securities fraud. Patricia filed for divorce immediately. She claimed she knew nothing about Robert's crimes and was as much a victim as anyone. Nobody believed that either, but she managed to avoid criminal charges. Brandon tried to distance himself from the scandal. He quit his job at the company, not that there was a company left, and tried to rebrand himself as an independent businessman. But his reputation was destroyed. Nobody wanted to work with the cheating son of a fraudster. Nicole heard that Amber dumped him 2 weeks after the wedding disaster. Apparently, she wasn't interested in a man without money or prospects. How fitting. As for the prenup lawyers, they were suspended pending investigation. It turned out the Mitchell family was not their only client they had helped create predatory agreements for. Other women came forward with similar stories. Nicole was glad. She had always known that if she was being treated this way, others must be too. Maybe her very public explosion would help them find justice too. Through it all, Nicole stayed quiet. She didn't give interviews. She didn't post on social media. She let her actions speak for themselves. Tasha told her she was becoming a folk hero. "There are Facebook groups dedicated to you," Tasha said, laughing. "Women are calling you the prenup slayer." "That's ridiculous," Nicole said. "It's amazing. You're like a real-life superhero." Nicole didn't feel like a superhero. She felt tired and sad and relieved all at the same time. She had done what needed to be done, but she didn't enjoy it. She didn't take pleasure in watching the Mitchell family crumble. She just wanted to move on. And finally she could. 2 months after the wedding that wasn't, Nicole stood in the offices of her new company. It was a small space in Midtown Atlanta, just a few rooms with desks and computers and a conference table. But it was hers. She had decided to start a healthcare consulting firm. She would use her nursing experience and her business resources to help hospitals improve their patient care. It was something she had dreamed about for years but never had the courage to pursue. Now she had all the courage in the world. "Welcome to Carter Healthcare Solutions," Tasha said, standing beside her. "It's really happening." "It's really happening," Nicole agreed. She looked around at the empty office. Soon it would be filled with employees and clients and all the busy work of building something from scratch. It wouldn't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever was. But she was ready. She was finally ready to live the life she deserved. 6 months after the wedding disaster, Nicole barely recognized her own life. Carter Healthcare Solutions had taken off faster than she ever expected. It started with one contract, a small hospital in Macon that needed help with their patient intake procedures. Nicole flew down there herself, spent 2 weeks studying their systems, and came back with a plan that saved them hundreds of thousands of dollars while improving patient satisfaction. Word spread. Soon she had 3 clients, then 10, then 20. Hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, they all wanted what she was offering. Real solutions from someone who understood healthcare from the inside. Nicole hired her first employee within 2 months, then 5 more, then a dozen. She moved from the small office to a bigger one with a view of the skyline. She was featured in a business magazine as one of Atlanta's rising entrepreneurs. Tasha was her director of operations. It had taken some convincing. Tasha had a good job at a marketing firm, but Nicole needed someone she could trust completely. And there was no one she trusted more. "You know what the best part is?" Tasha said one evening as they were closing up the office. "You built this yourself. No Mitchell money. No family connections. Just you and your brain and your $10 million in seed capital." Nicole smiled. The $10 million definitely helped. But it's not just the money. You could have just invested in real estate and lived off the interest forever. Instead, you created jobs. You're helping people. You're making a difference. That was the part that mattered most to Nicole. The money had never been about buying things or showing off. It was about security, freedom, the ability to build something meaningful. And she was building it. But as much as Nicole loved her work, she knew something was still missing. She hadn't dated since Brandon. She hadn't even thought about it. Every time someone showed interest, a colleague, a client, a man at the coffee shop, she shut it down. She wasn't ready. She didn't know if she would ever be ready. The betrayal still lived inside her. The memory of those photos. The humiliation. The loss. She had won, yes. But winning didn't undo the hurt. Then she met Damian Brooks. It happened at a charity event for a children's hospital. Nicole was there as a donor. She had set up a foundation in Grandma Ruth's name to fund pediatric care. She was standing by the silent auction tables when a voice spoke beside her. "The vintage saxophone," the voice said. "That's what I'm bidding on." Nicole turned and saw a tall man in a well-fitted suit. He had warm brown skin, a neat beard, and eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "You play saxophone?" she asked. I try to, he said. I'm better at architecture, but music is my first love. Architecture? Damian Brooks. He extended his hand. I design buildings for people who have too much money and too little taste. Nicole laughed. It was unexpected. She hadn't laughed at a stranger's joke in months. Nicole Carter, she said, shaking his hand. I'm in healthcare consulting. I know who you are, Damian said. You're the woman who exposed the Mitchell family at her own wedding. Nicole's smile faded. I suppose everyone knows about that. Most people think you're a hero, Damian said. I think you're brave. Brave? It takes courage to stand up for yourself when everyone wants you to sit down and be quiet. Especially people with money and power. Nicole studied his face, looking for mockery or flattery. She found neither. He seemed genuine. That's a kind thing to say, she said. I'm not trying to be kind. I'm trying to be accurate. He smiled again. Would you like to get coffee sometime? No agenda. Just two people talking. Nicole wanted to say no. That was her instinct. Protect herself, keep her distance, trust no one. But something about Damian made her hesitate. One coffee, she said finally. No promises beyond that. That's all I'm asking for. They had coffee the next week. Then dinner the week after that. Then a walk in the park on a Sunday afternoon. Damian didn't push. He didn't pressure. He just showed up, listened, and treated her with respect. He already knew about her money, everyone did after the viral video, and he didn't care. He paid for his own meals. He never asked about her business or her accounts. He just wanted to know her. Why? She asked him one night over dinner. Why do you keep asking me out? You know my history. You know I'm not easy. I don't want easy, Damian said. I want real. And you're the most real person I've ever met. Nicole felt something shift inside her. Something she had kept locked away since Brandon. Something that felt dangerously like hope. I can't promise anything, she said. I'm still figuring things out. I know, Damian replied. I'm patient. And he was. They dated slowly. Nicole set the pace and Damian respected it. He didn't get angry when she canceled plans because she was overwhelmed. He didn't get jealous when she spent all her time at work. He just kept showing up, consistent and steady, proving himself day by day. By the time 6 months had passed since that charity event, Nicole realized something had changed. She was happy. Not the fake happiness she had tried to convince herself she felt with Brandon. Not the desperate happiness of someone trying to fit into a place she didn't belong. Real happiness. The kind that comes from building your own life, on your own terms, surrounded by people who see you for who you truly are. Nicole stood at the window of her new apartment, a beautiful place she had bought with her own money, and looked out at the city lights. She had lost a lot, but she had gained so much more. 1 year after the wedding that changed everything, Nicole threw a party. It wasn't a big party. Just 20 people or so. Her employees, a few clients who had become friends, Tasha and her husband, and Damian. They gathered in Nicole's apartment to celebrate the first anniversary of Carter Healthcare Solutions. 1 year, Tasha said, raising her glass. 100 employees. 25 million in revenue. Not bad for a woman who used to take blood pressure readings. Everyone laughed. Nicole smiled and shook her head. It wasn't just me, she said. It took all of us. Every person in this room helped build something special. But she knew what Tasha meant. 1 year ago, Nicole had been a woman with a broken heart and a determination to make something of herself. Now she was a CEO, a philanthropist, a woman who had turned pain into power. Damian came up beside her and slipped his arm around her waist. You okay? He asked quietly. I'm great, she said. And she meant it. After the guests left, Damian helped her clean up. They worked in comfortable silence, the way couples do when they've been together long enough to not need words. I have something for you, Damian said when the last dish was washed. Damian, you didn't have to. I wanted to. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Nicole's heart stopped. It was too soon for that. They had only been together a year. She wasn't ready for. She opened the box. It was a key. It's to my apartment, Damian said. I'm not asking you to move in. I'm just saying, you have a place. Whenever you want it. Nicole looked at the key. Such a small thing. But it meant so much. I'm not good at this, she said. At trusting. At letting people in. I know, Damian said. That's why I'm giving you a key instead of asking for one. You take the lead. I follow. Nicole felt tears in her eyes. She had cried so many times over the past year. Tears of anger, grief, frustration. But these were different. These were tears of gratitude. She kissed him. A real kiss without holding back. For the first time in a long time, she let herself feel everything. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you," he replied, "for giving me a chance." The next morning, Nicole got an unexpected call. "Miss Carter? This is Franklin Moss, the private investigator." She hadn't spoken to him in months. "Mr. Moss, what can I do for you? I thought you'd want to know." Brandon Mitchell was spotted working as a host at a restaurant downtown, the Marlin Grill. Nicole was quiet for a moment. Brandon, the man who was supposed to give her the world, now seating people at a restaurant. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. "I thought you might want to see it for yourself." Closure, maybe. Nicole thought about it. She could drive down there. She could walk in and watch Brandon hand out menus. She could let him see what she had become while he had fallen so far. But what would be the point? "No," she said. "I don't need to see it." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. Some doors should stay closed." She hung up and looked out the window. Somewhere across the city, Brandon was living his new life. Smaller, humbler, perhaps wiser, though she doubted it. Did she feel satisfaction? Maybe a little. But mostly she felt nothing. He was her past. A chapter she had closed. A lesson she had learned. She wasn't the woman who had cried in her car outside her apartment anymore. She wasn't the bride who walked down the aisle with a folder full of secrets. She wasn't the orphan trying to find a family that would accept her. She was Nicole Carter. CEO. Philanthropist. Survivor. And she didn't need to see Brandon Mitchell to know she had won. That afternoon, Nicole went to visit Grandma Ruth's grave. She hadn't been there in a while and she felt bad about that. The old woman deserved better. The cemetery was quiet and green. Nicole laid flowers on the headstone and sat down on the grass beside it. "I did it, Grandma," she said softly. "I stood up for myself. I didn't let anyone make me feel small." The wind rustled through the trees. It almost sounded like a voice. "I found someone," Nicole continued. "His name is Damien. He's kind and patient and he sees me for who I am. I think you would have liked him." She touched the cool stone. "I'm happy, Grandma. Really truly happy. And I have you to thank for that. You taught me how to be strong. You gave me the land that gave me my fortune. You showed me what it means to have pride." Nicole sat there for a long time, letting the peace of the place wash over her. She thought about everything she had been through. The losses, the betrayals, the moments when she thought she would never recover. But she had recovered. She had more than recovered. She had flourished. When Nicole finally stood up, she felt lighter than she had in years. The past was the past. The hurt was behind her. The Mitchell family was a memory that grew fainter every day. In front of her was a life she had built with her own 2 hands. A business that helped people. A relationship that honored her. A future that was hers to shape. Nicole walked back to her car with the sun on her face. She was going to pick up Damien and take him to dinner at her favorite restaurant. Then maybe they would walk along the river and talk about nothing important. Simple things. Happy things. She had learned that those were the things that mattered most. As she drove away from the cemetery, Nicole smiled to herself. She thought about the woman who had sat in her car outside her apartment a year ago, crying over a prenup and a man who didn't love her. She wanted to reach back through time and hug that woman. "You're going to be okay," she would tell her. "More than okay. You're going to be amazing." Because she was.